cancer is both different across the world and sort of the same. Being a leader, if you are, is one of the things you need to do is to sort of get out of their way and enable them and really work. Do not assume that what you're doing now is what you'll be doing in 5 years.
Hi everyone, welcome back to OncoDaily. My name is Ter-Azaryan, and today it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our guest, Dr. Oliver Bogler. Hi, Dr. Bogler. It's my pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Before we start, I would like to introduce our guest a little briefly. Dr. Oliver Bogler is the Chief Executive Officer of Knight Science Institute. Previously, he was the Director of the Center for Cancer Training at the National Cancer Institute. My first question, Dr. Bogler, for you will be, we would like to know a little bit about your background, your journey. So I would like to ask you, what first drew you toward biology and eventually into cancer research? Was it a personal experience, a mentor, or just pure scientific curiosity?
Actually, it was something altogether different. It was a book. And when I was a high school student, which is a very long time ago now, there was a book that had been published relatively recently. It was called The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. And of course, it's a very famous book, and he is a very famous professor at Oxford who popularizes science. But this book, when I was a teenager, really grabbed my attention. It basically puts forward the idea that natural selection happens at the level of the gene and not the level of the organism. But what was also exciting about the book is the way he wrote. He wrote for someone young or not even a scientist to understand. It was very accessible language, lots of metaphors and ideas. And I just was captivated by this book. It happens that he had attended the same high school in England that I attended, Oundle School, which is why his book was abundantly available at my school and maybe why I ran across it. But it captivated my imagination and it made me want to become a biologist.
Thank you. Dr. Bogler, during your early research years, what discoveries or challenges stand out as pivotal in your scientific development?
Yeah, so then, I did my undergrad in biochemistry, which is, where people interested in what would now be called molecular biology went back in the 1980s. And then I found a really nice lab doing interesting work on cell differentiation in glial cells to do my PhD. And then I came to the United States for postdoc, and I've been here ever since, like a lot of people. I mean, I had a great time during most of my early science years. I have to say I had a great time in the PhD, but there are also some challenges. Coming to a new country is hard. Adapting to a new style of working. There's a lot of differences between England and America. And, like many people, I had some challenges with one of my postdoc mentors, to be honest. And we just didn't really get along very well, and it made it harder. But I was able to go to a second postdoc, which was fabulous, at the Ludwig Institute for Cancer Research, and there, was mentored. I was able to establish a research program and take it with me into my faculty years.
Dr. Bogler, can you share a moment in the lab that taught you a lesson you still carry today, whether about science or about leadership?
Wow, that's a challenge. I think, I really miss having lab. I shut my lab down in 2013, and I just loved having a lab. The daily interactions with my colleagues and my team members was just so fabulous. I'm not sure I can pick out a single lesson. I think there was a continuous sort of tutelage of trying something, it not working properly, having to rethink, having to, change directions and discover new ideas. And I think that's what I liked about science. But I'm sorry, I can't really think of a single lesson that is helpful to package.
Thank you. So as we know, you served in senior leadership positions at MD Anderson. And I would like to ask you, what was the biggest lesson you learned about running large cancer research programs?
Yeah, so at MD Anderson, I joined in 2005 and spent the first half of my almost 15 years there doing research in the Brain Tumor Center. And I really enjoyed that. I helped the Brain Tumor Center get a large grant, what is called a SPORE grant, which is a multi-investigator, very translational grant. That was a lot of fun because I had a chance to interact with many scientists. And then I moved into more administrative roles, one of which was to support global partnerships, academic partnerships on behalf of the Cancer Center. And that's where I met Dr. Tamamaya, and because we came to Armenia and built a partnership with the Armenian Cancer Center and things like that. What I learned from that experience, to be honest, is that cancer is both different across the world and sort of the same. I mean, the disease is often the same, although there are some regional presentation differences. And the heart and soul of the people working on cancer is sort of harmonious across the world. I met people with very much the same mission, the same passions wherever I went. But the challenges can also be very different in different countries, in different medical ecosystems, and different resources and things like that. So it was a never-ending, fascinating journey of learning how cancer is being tackled everywhere in our world, and kept reinforcing, to be honest, the notion that by coming together and working together, we can do so much more. And I think that's one of the amazing contributions of OncoDaily, is it really is creating a global community of cancer, and that's a great resource to have.
In your view, what are the essential characteristics of a successful leader in science and cancer research?
Gosh, I mean, I think certainly from my personal perspective, the first thing I would say is humility. So one of the pleasures of my time at MD Anderson in those different roles was to work with incredible investigators, both at MD Anderson and in our partner institutions. And I've always thought of myself as a, decent scientist. I would say maybe a B+ scientist, but you really get to meet and interact with some sort of, A++ people. And so being a leader, if you are, is one of the things you need to do, is to sort of get out of their way and enable them and really work. There's a lot of talk about, servant leadership and how, but not everybody who talks about it practices it. I certainly try to do that. And one of the things I'm most proud of in my time at MD Anderson in the global program was we had this seed program where we would seed research between investigators at Anderson and in our partner institutions. And that launched a couple of programs that are still going, 10 plus years later and going from strength to strength. The one that really comes to mind is the one led by Dr. Kathleen Schmeller, who is now the VP for Global Oncology at MD Anderson. And she does amazing work on HPV and cervical cancer with Mozambique and other partners. And I take no credit for it, but I was there when she launched that program. And that was, for me, as a leader of that program, a really amazing moment, and one I take great pride and pleasure in. At a distance, I'm not doing the work, she is.
Thank you, Dr. Bogler. What were the biggest challenges you faced in managing a large, complex organization, and how did you overcome them?
Yes, I think. One of the things that I experienced when I became leader of the academic affairs portfolio at MD Anderson was that I was suddenly leading teams that did things that I didn't know how to do, right? So I was a scientist, but in my team were people, for example, who did professional development and supported, conferences and did work with scientific editing and so on. So for me, one of the stretches was to learn how to lead groups where you don't have that primary expertise, right? When you're running your lab, you pretty much know, what is going on and what your team are doing. So that was a learning experience, and I think that was an interesting challenge. I think one of the other problems, or not problems exactly, but challenges that large complex organizations, sometimes it's hard to shift them into new directions. And sometimes shifts happen that have sort of a profound impact on the entire organization. And so they can be difficult environments to navigate sometimes. But I have to say I had the best time there, and I really enjoyed my work.
Dr. Bogler, looking back on your time leading the NCI's Center for Cancer Training, what key insights did you gain about preparing the next generation of cancer researchers?
Yeah, so I had 5 fabulous years at the NCI. I have to say, deep gratitude for the opportunity to work there with some excellent people and on an incredible mission. I had in previous roles at MD Anderson and even at the Echo Institute worked on sort of education and training portfolios and supporting early career scientists. So coming to NCI and having this role was just a fabulous opportunity for me. We are in a very difficult time in science in the world, and certainly in the United States, and that includes the cancer research world. And so right now and over the past years, my focus has been how do we support those early cancer scientists, right? How do we attract talented young people into our community? How do we sustain them as they take the arduous journey from, say, being an undergrad interested in cancer biology to being an independent investigator? And at the NCI with my teams, we built multiple programs and funding mechanisms to sustain that pathway, in the hope that the people who were able to take advantage of these programs would be able to have a good career and would feel like there is a future for them. I think that's one of the things I hear again and again. Right now, people in their early 20s, maybe even late 20s, mid 20s, who are like, what career will I choose? When they look at science, when they look at the academic path in cancer research, they may have worries that that is not a path that will be there for them long term. We need to make sure that there is a path so that people can continue to come in, do cancer research, and make the discoveries that we need for the next set of treatments, the next set of prevention strategies, all these things that we need. So yeah, that was really my experience. And I've taken that with me past my time at NCI into what I'm doing now at the Knight Science Institute.
I would like to ask you, as a cancer survivor yourself, how has that personal journey influenced the way you lead and make decisions in your role?
Yeah, I mean, being a survivor, and my wife is also a survivor, so that profoundly affects almost everything in your life. That's just the reality. Many people will tell you that when you get the diagnosis, you kind of move from one place to another. Christopher Hitchens, in his great sort of end of life, I don't know what it is. It's really sort of an autobiography. It's really a sort of testament, describes this. It's called Mortality, and he describes this as moving to another country. And it kind of feels that way. So you're always in this other country, and you're always reminded of it. It's given me a sense of urgency and a sense of mission, even that I feel very strongly personally. And so I try to make every day count. I try to do that and advance it, not through my own work anymore primarily. I'm no longer an active researcher, but through sustaining the community and particularly the early career scientists. If I can do that, then I feel I will have done something of value.
As the Chief Executive Officer of the Knight Science Institute, what are your main priorities and areas of focus at the moment?
Yeah, so the Knight Science Institute is brand new. It was founded by two really brilliant scientists, Dr. Itai Yanai from NYU and Dr. Martin Lercher, who is at the Heinrich Heine University in Düsseldorf. And Itai and Martin have been working together scientifically for the longest time. They met as postdocs, and they have a really great history of collaborative science. But in the course of that, they would sometimes hit a block. They would find themselves in a state of puzzlement. And they began to discover sort of at a meta level that there isn't just science, but there's also this other thing that people do to get past these moments, to have ideas, to identify scientific questions. And they read the autobiography of François Jacob, Nobel laureate from the 1970s. And he describes in his book, The Statue Within, this concept of day science and night science. And it's a really interesting concept. It captivated Itai and Martin's imagination. And what it is that day science is kind of what we think of when we think about science. It's rational. It's about creating hypotheses. It's about testing. It's about statistics and controls and experiments. And it's also how you write your scientific paper or give you a scientific talk. But what Jacob recognizes is that there's a whole nother sphere, what he termed night science, which is kind of a little bit less formal, a little less rigorous. It's more where you have ideas. You think in metaphor. You lean into all kinds of ideations, and you're in a more free-flowing form. And what he described, and what Itai and Martin have now developed into a really interesting and comprehensive body of ideas and knowledge, is that is an essential part of science. And to their surprise, it isn't really taught in scientific curricula, right? So when you go to graduate school or your postdoc, there isn't anybody teaching you about creativity. There's almost this assumption in the world of science that you're either creative or you're not. And we disagree at the Knight Science Institute. We feel that everybody is creative and that creativity is a muscle, if you will, that can be strengthened, that can be exercised and improved. And that's what the Knight Science Institute is all about. So our mission is to shift the culture in science by training researchers to embrace the creative Knight science process as an essential complement to rigorous hypothesis testing of the day science side.
I would like to ask you, you mentioned a couple of books already, but if you could recommend 3 books that have influenced your thinking or leadership style, what would they be and why?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I already mentioned The Selfish Gene, so I will mention that one again, just because I think it's so central to my life, and there's been an updated edition of it as well. But really, any of the writings of Richard Dawkins are incredibly interesting to me and influential to my thinking and my science. Another book I would recommend is The Society of Genes, which is the sequel to The Selfish Gene, written by Doctors Yanai and Lercha, which is really an interesting development of the ideas and the idea now that genes are not really just by themselves, which is how Dawkins portrayed them originally in The Selfish Gene, but are really in a society. And of course, that reflects more modern thinking of how gene networks work and things like that. And by the way, although it's not a book, I will recommend the writings of Itai and Martin, which you can find on our website at knightscience.org. They have written a dozen or so articles expounding the core ideas of Knight Science. They also have a fabulous podcast, which I would recommend. But back to the books, the last book, the third book I would recommend is The Knowledge Machine by Michael Strevens. He is a philosopher of science at NYU. And this is a phenomenal book because it really looks at the transition in history of thinking from sort of more, well, let me briefly explain it. Thinking of where science is integrated into culture, right? So if you think of the ancient Greeks, for example, when they had a theory, it was important that theory was not just, interesting, but it also had to be elegant and it had to be harmonious with religious thinking. What Strevens very clearly describes is that the knowledge machine that has propelled us since the Renaissance into the modern age, right, at a blinding speed. Even in my lifetime, from the basic computers when I was a kid to, AI now, it's an incredible, what has driven that? And he says it is the really an irrational iron rule that sits at the heart of science, which says only empirical testing matters. Your theory can be ugly. It can be puzzling, can be weird. Think of things like quantum mechanics, right? Really hard to explain in a way that makes sense to anybody, even a physicist. But the predictive power of it is amazing. So this book is so interesting and so fundamental. In fact, we are starting a Knight Science book club on our website, in our online community, and in September. The first book we're going to do is The Knowledge Machine. So if people are listening to this and are interested, come and join us, get a copy of the book, and join us in September for, we're going to do 4 sessions on different parts of the book and talk about the ideas in there. So come and join us, and hopefully it'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Dr. Bogler, I would like to know about your hobbies and how do you maintain the work-life balance?
Yes, good question. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really talk about work-life balance so much as work-life integration. So I am very passionate about my work. I've always loved it. Right now, I'm in an exciting phase because I'm helping Itai and Martin to build the Knight Science Institute and sort of scale and share these ideas, at a much higher level with a lot more people. That's a lot of fun. I'm also doing on the side a little bit of coaching for early career scientists. And some consulting work, which I'm also very passionate about. I'm working on a little podcast project too. I had a podcast at NCI, Inside Cancer Careers. Now I'm got a slightly different project. I won't say what it is yet because, we're still developing it, but hopefully it's going to be interesting. And then I do have some hobbies. I love to read. I will confess that I do also still, despite my advanced age, enjoy playing video games. I'm playing Death Stranding 2 right now, which is really incredibly fun. I have a motorcycle that I love to take out. I live up here in Vermont, and I love to take it out on a sunny day through the beautiful countryside that I live in. I love to cook. I make jams. I mean, my life is very full of fun things to do, but at the end of the day, I love to come back in and do my work, which is to support scientists.
It was very inspiring to hear about your hobbies. What advice would you give to an early career scientist who dreams of making a lasting impact on oncology?
Yeah, thank you. That's the toughest question last, I see. Well, look, it's a really, particularly if you're in the United States, it's a really difficult time. Though I just read this morning that in Canada, there are budget cuts coming to Canadian science, and there may be, other parts of the world where there's also budget cuts. The global economy may be weakening. It's going to be a difficult time. My advice to you is, if you are passionate about science, and if that is what you truly wish to do and want to do, that you try to find a way that you can navigate this difficult time in the hope that there will be better times ahead. And also, frankly, at the same time, help those better times come about. So be active, be politically active, talk to your representatives, talk to the leadership at your institution. There are many organizations online now where you can get involved, science resistance and other things. If you look it up and Google it, you'll find these groups that are getting together. The vast majority of people on this planet recognize how important science is, understand that it is ultimately an engine of economic growth and of improvement of the human condition. And so it's really incredibly puzzling to me that leaders in so many countries are acting the way they are, as if science had somehow hurt us or harmed us or anything. So I can only hope that this is a temporary situation and that we will come out the other end. And I would hate for young people dedicated to this pathway to sacrifice their dreams because of that. And that's part of the reason I have taken on this sort of new mission now. I'm as I said, I'm doing coaching for scientists. I'm trying to help people navigate these difficult times because I'm very worried that we will lose a whole generation of gifted people who could make amazing contributions. So that would be my advice and my hope for us as a community.
Thank you. And my last question for you will be, looking back across your career, what is one piece of wisdom you would share with your younger self?
Wow. I guess it would be to do not assume that what you're doing now is what you'll be doing in 5 years. So I've found myself, I've made 3 significant career changes since I turned 50, which was somewhat unexpected, right? I left the leadership roles at MD Anderson. I left my position at the Echo Institute, and now I've left the National Cancer Institute. And when I took those positions, I have to say, I thought, well, this is what I'll be doing till I retire. Certainly when I joined NCI in 2020, I thought, wow, I'll do this job for 10 years and then I'll retire. And as you know, I exited in 2005 because, to be honest, I could no longer be part of it. I could no longer see myself making the impact that I wish to make. And so my advice to myself would be, don't live as if what you're doing right now is going to continue for the next 10, 15, 20 years, the rest of your career, or whatever. Assume that unexpected changes will come and prepare for them. And what I mean by that is make economic choices that reflect the possibility that there will be a disruption to your career path, and be always, to be honest, one of the things that saved me time and time again is networking and building networks and being interested in people and connecting to people. I would say to myself, don't make those assumptions and always, be a person in the world and connect with other people.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure for me to interview you today, Dr. Oliver Bogler. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so great to be here, and I really love what OncoDaily is doing. Keep up the good work, please.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to OncoDaily on YouTube. Hit the bell icon to stay updated.